All right, so are you ready to dive into some pretty interesting advice?
Always. Yeah, I'm ready.
Today we're going to be looking at just one source.
Okay.
We're doing a deep dive on Alex Hormozi's YouTube video, How to Actually Get Rich in Your 20s.
Okay.
And now...
Sounds promising.
Yeah, right. Now, before you think like, oh, I'm past my 20s, this isn't for me.
Right.
Trust me, even if you are like well past your 20s.
Yeah.
Hormozi, he's got some bold advice on like work ethic and success that we can unpack together.
Yeah, that's right. You know, we can look at the why behind his claims and
Yeah.
I think even more importantly, see what can practically be applied, regardless of what age you're at or gender or what you're aiming for, because the principles are pretty universal.
Yeah, absolutely. So Hormozi, he built a 9-figure fortune before he turned 30.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really sugarcoat anything. Like, he's got a hardcore work ethic. He's talking about a 6-day work week, 12-hour days, especially for the younger crowd.
Oh my gosh.
He's all about trading that youthful energy for experience and skills. So, I mean, it sounds pretty intense, right?
Oh, it definitely makes you kind of raise an eyebrow.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's interesting because it brings up the question of, does working more always equal more value?
Right.
You know, like in some fields it might,
Right.
You know, in others it might not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not necessarily a universal equation.
Yeah.
And the other question that brings up is it sustainable?
Right.
Can you really keep up that pace
Right.
for the long haul?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that makes me think of his other, one of his other ideas he talks about, resourcefulness over resources.
Yeah.
And he's got this saying, use what you've got.
Right.
And that seems to be about leveraging your existing assets, like time and energy.
Exactly. And this is where it gets so interesting, I think, is he's really challenging that traditional business advice.
Right.
Where you think you need to gather all these resources and you need to have all this money and you need to, you know, do all this stuff before you can start. And what he's saying is like,
Right.
no, look at what you already have.
Right.
Look at your skills.
Yeah.
Your network, even your limitations, and how can you leverage those to actually make something happen?
Yeah.
It's like that old saying, like, necessity is the mother of invention.
Right. I like that. Yeah.
So sometimes when we're limited, that's when we can actually get the most creative.
Totally. And that kind of connects to what he says about patience, too. Right?
Yeah.
He's all about being patient with outcomes like financial success, but impatient with the inputs,
Right.
the actions you take, the learning process.
So it almost sounds like a paradox.
Right.
Right.
Like
You're patient with this, but impatient with that, but it actually makes sense. Because if you're constantly taking action and you're learning and you're refining your approach, then eventually those outputs take care of themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the idea, right? You're constantly putting in the inputs. Eventually those outputs will come.
Right. It's like planting the seeds.
Exactly.
Right. So it reminds me of like learning to play piano, right?
Right.
You have to practice a lot.
Right.
You might not sound great at first.
Yeah.
But if you stick with it, eventually you'll get there.
Yeah.
And speaking of learning, he talks about, he's really big on skill development.
Right.
Through volume and feedback. He tells a funny story about his first sales experience at a gym. And it didn't go so well, but he learned a valuable lesson.
And I think that's so true, that making mistakes is part of the process. And the more you're willing to put yourself out there and make those mistakes, the faster you will learn.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you got to embrace those early fumbles.
Right.
And use them as fuel to grow.
Yeah, so we got this picture of young Alex, right? Putting in crazy hours, using what he's got, and learning through trial and error. But then he throws in this idea of being high energy.
Right.
Like even bouncing on a trampoline between sales calls. Like what?
Now that might sound a little eccentric, right?
Right.
But there's actually some psychology behind that, I think.
Okay.
Think about it. If you're meeting with a potential client
Right.
or a collaborator
Yeah.
and you come in bringing all this negative energy to the table,
Right.
it's going to have an impact and not a good one.
Right.
But if you're bringing positive energy to the table,
Yeah.
it's going to make a difference.
Right.
And it can be contagious, you know?
Yeah, it's like when you meet someone who's just genuinely excited at what they do,
Right.
it makes you want to learn more.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've definitely been, drawn in by someone's passion before.
Right. Yeah. It can be really powerful.
Yeah.
And enthusiasm, that authentic enthusiasm can help you connect with people.
Right.
It can help you build rapport. It can help you create a more positive and receptive environment.
Totally.
So it's not about being fake.
Right.
It's about tapping into that
Yeah.
genuine excitement
Right.
for what you're doing.
Right. Okay. So another way to kind of fuel that excitement is through mentorship.
Yeah.
he emphasizes finding people who are ahead of you and learning from their experiences.
Right.
And he's a big advocate for humility in that process.
Mentorship is invaluable, and I think it's about finding those people who resonate with your goals, who have walked a similar path, and who are willing to share their wisdom and experience with you.
Right.
And it's not just about taking their advice,
Right.
but absorbing their wisdom, their way of thinking.
Yeah. Okay, so now you're hustling, you're resourceful, you've got a mentor, and you're radiating positive energy. So now what about decision making? He's got this framework he calls the goal frame. And it's about asking yourself, will this help me reach my goals? Like with every choice.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's a very result-oriented approach.
Yeah.
But you also have to wonder, are there downsides to that?
Right.
Like, does it mean that you sacrifice everything else in pursuit of your goals?
Yeah.
What about relationships? What about your personal well-being?
Yeah.
Even just like taking time to enjoy the journey.
Right. That's a really good point. Because he even says your goals will stick with you longer than these relationships.
Wow.
Like, that's pretty intense, right?
It really is, yeah. It definitely challenges conventional wisdom.
Yeah.
You know, where we're told to prioritize relationships above all else.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, like, wait a minute, is that true?
Right. Should I be focusing on my goals more than my relationships?
Right, yeah. It's a very provocative idea.
Yeah.
And one that we need to unpack further, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, we'll put a pin in that one, and we'll move on to something a little bit lighter. Because he's got this funny take on how to impress people.
Okay.
He says, if you want to impress poor people, outspend them. But if you want to impress rich people, outwork them.
Oh.
I thought that was pretty good.
I like that. Yeah, he's flipping the script
Yeah.
on, you know, what we usually think of as success or status.
Right.
You know, it's not about, you know, showing off your wealth or material possessions. It's about demonstrating that work ethic and dedication. It's about, he's saying that, you know, respect comes from that value you create. And that's earned through hard work.
Right.
It's not just given to you because you have a fancy car.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And that kind of hard work, relentless drive, that's what he calls the savage hero mindset, right?
Exactly. And he's saying, embrace the challenges, embrace the setbacks, embrace those hardships and see them as part of your origin story.
Right.
You know, the bigger the monster. Yeah.
The more epic the hero, right?
Right. He's saying that those tough times, they're really what shape us.
Yeah.
And they make us stronger.
Absolutely.
More resilient.
Yeah.
I can definitely relate to that. I mean, who hasn't faced some serious obstacles in their life?
It's all about reframing our perspective on those challenges. Instead of seeing them as roadblocks, we can choose to see them as opportunities for growth and learning.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got this picture of the savage hero, right? Working tirelessly, overcoming obstacles, radiating positive energy.
Right.
But what about learning new things?
Yeah.
He actually says learning isn't that difficult.
Interesting.
And he challenges us to commit just 20 hours to something before declaring it too hard.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good challenge.
Yeah.
Because I think what often happens is we let fear and procrastination hold us back.
Right.
From even trying new things.
Right.
We build them up in our minds to be way more difficult than they actually are.
Yeah, we're afraid to start.
Right.
Because we assume we're going to fail.
Right.
Yeah, so what if we just committed to those first 20 hours?
Right.
What would happen if we just pushed past that initial resistance?
Right.
And just gave it a shot.
Right. That's where the magic happens, right?
Yeah.
It's that shift from I can't to I'll figure it out.
Exactly.
I think that's a really empowering thought.
It is, yeah. It's very liberating.
So you're telling me I could learn to code, speak a new language, or even write a novel in just 20 hours?
Well, I'm not saying that 20 hours will make you an expert.
Okay.
But it's enough to get you past that initial hurdle. You know, to break through that fear and to start building some momentum.
Yeah.
And then from there, you know, who knows?
Right.
But at least you've gotten started.
Yeah, I love that. It's about taking action, experimenting, embracing the learning process, and who knows, maybe those first 20 hours will lead to something truly incredible.
Exactly. Yeah, you never know where it might lead. Yeah. It's like, you know, dipping your toes in the water before you jump in head first.
Right.
You get a feel for it. You realize it's not as scary as you thought.
Right.
And then you're ready to go all in.
Right. And sometimes going all in means making some unconventional choices.
Yeah.
Like, he's really big on sleep.
Right.
Like, he actually recommends setting alarms to go to bed on time.
Wow, I've never heard that one before.
Who does that?
Yeah, we're so used to hearing about, like burning the midnight oil and pushing yourself to the limit and,
Right.
Hustle, hustle, hustle.
Yeah.
And he's saying, no, actually, you need to rest and recover.
Right.
If you're constantly running on fumes,
Yeah.
you're not going to be performing at your best.
Right. And he even says that drinking alcohol, costs you 2 days.
Yeah.
The day you drink and the day you recover. Right.
Yeah.
So he's not saying you can't ever have fun.
Right.
But it's about being mindful of the choices you make.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how they impact your goals. Right.
Yeah.
It goes back to that goal frame.
Yeah.
If you're serious about achieving something big,
Yeah.
you might have to make some sacrifices along the way.
Right.
And it's not about deprivation. It's really about just making conscious choices
Right.
that align with your vision.
Right. And sometimes those choices can lead to some tough social situations.
Yeah.
He talks about how you might outgrow friendships
Right.
or face criticism from people who don't understand your drive.
It's that classic hero's journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where the path to success is rarely a smooth one.
Right.
There's bumps in the road, there's difficult conversations, there's moments of doubt.
Yeah, it can feel isolating. It's
Yeah.
it's like you're speaking a different language. Remember that scene in The Matrix where Morpheus offers Neo the red pill and the blue pill?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can choose to stay comfortable but stuck, or you can embrace the unknown and unlock your potential.
And that choice can be terrifying.
Yeah.
Right? It often means stepping outside of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
challenging the status quo,
Yeah.
and forging your own path.
Totally. It reminds me of when I first quit my corporate job to pursue my passion. And everyone thought I was crazy, but I knew I had to do it.
Right.
I was so tired of playing it safe and living someone else's dream.
That takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
It's about trusting your gut, even when everyone else is telling you you're wrong,
Yeah.
to follow your heart.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't easy,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't trade it for the world. And it all goes back to his point about prioritizing your goals.
Right.
It's not about being selfish.
Right.
It's about recognizing that you have a unique contribution to make.
Exactly. It's about owning your ambition
Right.
and not letting fear hold you back.
Totally.
And sometimes that means making those tough choices
Yeah.
about who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, remember what he said. Your goals will stick with you longer than these relationships.
Right.
It's kind of a harsh truth, but it's something to think about.
It is, and it's about being intentional with those
Right.
relationships, right? Surrounding yourself with people who support your growth,
Right.
who challenge you to be your best,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
who understand the sacrifices that you're making.
Right. And speaking of sacrifices, he's got this interesting take on money. He says, if you want to impress poor people, outspend them. If you want to impress rich people, outwork them.
Mic drop.
Yeah. Right.
He's calling out that superficiality, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's not about, the flashy car or the designer clothes. It's about the work you put in, the value you create, the legacy you build.
Right.
He's basically saying that, real wealth
Yeah.
is about more than just money.
Yeah.
It's about having that strong work ethic,
Right.
a dedication to excellence, and a commitment to making a difference in the world.
Yeah. It's about building something that lasts, something that matters. And that's, in his mind, the ultimate rebellion. Yeah.
He's encouraging us to defy those societal pressures,
Yeah.
to conform, to settle, to play it small.
Right.
He's saying, go out there, be a savage hero, and create something extraordinary.
Totally. And that journey isn't going to be easy.
Right.
There will be obstacles, setbacks, moments of self-doubt. But as he reminds us,
Right.
hardship is just your origin story.
It is, yeah. It's those tough times that shape us.
Yeah.
They build our resilience
Okay.
and make us who we are.
Right. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
What's one area in your life you've been playing it safe? Where have you been holding back, letting fear dictate your choices, or allowing those so-called demons to hold you back?
It's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like he's giving us permission to dream big and then handing us a toolbox
Right.
to actually go make those dreams a reality.
Exactly.
It's not even really just about getting rich. It's about
Right.
pushing our own boundaries and seeing what we're capable of.
Yeah, taking ownership of our lives.
Right.
Not letting, external factors or perceived limitations hold us back. It's really about recognizing that we have the power to shape our own destinies.
Right. Yeah. One thing that really struck me was his emphasis on delaying gratification, which seems so counterintuitive in today's world.
Right.
Of instant everything,
Right. Yeah.
But he argues that true success often requires playing the long game.
Yeah, he's challenging us to resist those quick fixes and those easy rewards.
All right.
And instead focus on building something sustainable, something that's going to pay off in the long run. It's like, planting a tree.
Right.
You don't get shade overnight, but if you nurture it patiently, it will eventually provide you with shelter and fruit.
Yeah, that makes me think of all the times I've given up on something too soon.
Yeah.
Like I get excited about a new project or something,
Right.
and then I hit a roadblock, or I get distracted by something shiny and new, and I just lose momentum.
Yeah, it's a common trap, I think. We live in a culture of instant gratification,
Right.
where everything's available at our fingertips, but real growth, real achievement, it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes effort.
Yeah.
And it takes a willingness to persevere through those challenges.
Yeah, he has this thought experiment he talks about.
Yeah.
Where he asks, what would you do if you were guaranteed to achieve your goals in the future?
Yeah.
But you couldn't experience any tangible rewards along the way. I mean, it really makes you think.
It does. It forces you to ask yourself, what are my motivations?
Yeah.
Am I driven by external validation?
Right.
Or am I driven by a deep-seated desire for growth and self-actualization?
Right.
And, if you're only in it for the likes and the accolades,
Yeah.
you're probably going to give up when things get tough.
Right.
But if you're truly passionate about what you're doing,
Yeah.
then the journey itself becomes the reward.
Right. It's like that saying, fall in love with the process, not the product.
Exactly. Yeah. Find the joy in the day-to-day grind.
Yeah.
In the constant learning and improvement, and in the satisfaction of knowing that you're pushing yourself to be your best.
Totally. And it's so easy in today's age, especially, to get caught up comparing ourselves to others.
Right. Yeah. With social media.
Right. Yeah.
It's hard not to.
Right.
But, as Hormozi reminds us, we're all on our own unique journeys. There's no one-size-fits-all formula for success. What works for one person might not work for another.
Right.
So it's really about finding what resonates with you.
Yeah.
Experimenting, constantly iterating based on your own experiences and feedback.
Yeah. He talks about how some of the most successful people he knows spent years honing their skills in what he calls high-volume sales environments.
Right.
Like door-to-door sales, cold calling, and stuff like that.
Right.
And it forced them to learn how to connect with people, handle rejection, refine their pitch.
And those skills translate far beyond the sales world.
Yeah.
Right? It's about developing that figure-it-out muscle.
Yeah.
That ability to adapt and overcome challenges in any situation.
Totally. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Alex Hormozi's wisdom, what's the one key takeaway you want our listener to walk away with today?
That's a good question, I think. For me, it's the realization that the biggest obstacle to success is often ourselves.
It's our fears, our excuses, our tendency to overthink and to delay action. Those are the real demons we need to conquer.
So if you're feeling stuck, uninspired, remember what we learned today from Hormozi. Embrace that resourcefulness over resources mindset. Set those 20-hour timers. Commit to learning something new.
Find a mentor who inspires you.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people who support your growth. And most importantly, don't be afraid to take action.
Right.
Even if it feels uncomfortable or scary.
Remember, you are a savage hero.
Right.
Capable of achieving anything you set your mind to.
Go out there and create your own epic origin story.
And until next time, keep diving deep.